All right, so let's talk about the newest album from Micwise and Hard2See called Outside Interference, right? So I mean,
Sure.
Micwise, you've talked about this guy before. Well, two of his works made him a number ones as far as best albums of the year. In 2020, it was Heat 68. In last year, it was The Degree of Difficulty, right? But this one here, similar to like what he did with He's Wise and especially like what he did with the Unusual Suspects. Here he's associating himself with another producer, right? And I should say the same thing goes with the degree of difficulty as well too, right? Where it's a new producer, or I should say somebody that is fairly unknown, right? Handling the production throughout the entirety of this, right? So in this case here, it is an American producer by the name of Hard2See. This is like my first introduction to his work, right? And just just before I dive into the album itself, right? I actually love these collabs that Mike White is doing, right? Him
Yeah.
being this indie artist who is still trying to get recognition in his home country, right? Our home country, right? Teaming up with these little known producers who have a lot of talent and whatnot, but they're just looking for, I don't want to say the big break, right? Cause that's like mainstream talk, but I'm just talking about just an opportunity to showcase their talent, right? So it's like these two like-minded individuals, with chips on their shoulders and whatnot, just kind of bringing the best out to each other, right, through their talents, right? And that was the same thing that we got with He's Wise, where Mike Wise teamed up with Heezy Hines, right? So it's like that. I just love this idea of, all right, it's not like I've reached as yet, but I know that I am at a level where I am comfortable teaming up with new producers and new artists, and it's just they bringing the best out of me and vice versa. So I love that when it comes to these records here, right? So yeah, Outside Interference, this dropped on Good Friday, which is pretty interesting. Also very interesting here is that this is a Bandcamp release. I don't want to say an
Right.
exclusive, right? But yeah, it's a Bandcamp release. The idea is that he wants physical copies to be sold from this, and yeah, judging by his output, I absolutely don't blame him at all, right? I wish I knew the mechanics of how these things work in Bandcamp in terms of if people do buy it, or is it that they just sort of like listen to it and move on, you know what I mean? I don't know all the mechanics behind it, right? But, I just hoping just right out the gate that, people do invest time and money into this record as well,
Right.
right? Because it's pretty solid. I really, really enjoyed it, right? Yeah,
Sure.
so without wasting any time, let's jump into the record right here, right? So it starts off with Building, which is the second single from this record, right? And the video for it actually dropped on Good Friday. Pretty solid
Right.
video, actually. So, shout out to Profess for shooting it. Well, I mean, you from Sando, so you could tell me. Well, I mean, it's
Yeah, that is
clearly the cemetery, right? Well, the Sando cemetery, right?
yeah, that is cemetery by well, it had two cemeteries actually.
Okay.
So that is one by the cinema.
Oh,
Well, by the
oh,
old cinema.
oh, okay. That's national. Oh, wow. I actually remember the
Yeah.
name of the cinema, the old cinema
Yeah.
in Sando, right? Holy shit, right? Wow, right? But yeah, like I even like commented on it too. Like I felt like visually, even though it's simple and to the point, yeah, it kind of matches the tone of what the song is and how the beat sounds and whatnot, right? Because yeah, the beat for this is haunting, right? It
Yeah.
has like this combination of keyboards, organs, and guitars, and it sounds like I'm hearing some like theme song to some 70s thriller or some Italian giallo film, right? I mean, if you're a film nerd, you know what I mean by that, right? Yeah, it just has this kind of ominous feel to it, though, you know what I mean? And I didn't expect that the record was going to start like that, but it started like that, right? Um, there's even a great moment halfway where you hear like this brief section of like these slow piano keys, right? And this kind of amplifies the tone of the beat, right? But anyway, Mike starts off with this intro where he says, "Honest conversations, please." And then he just basically starts off with these morbid bars. At least I find they are morbid to me, right? Talking about, how lonely his path to success is, basically like, the more people you bring in, the more people you'll lose or you'll grieve over when they die or they leave you, right? And he
Yeah.
kind of expands on that too, where he kind of says that, again, going back to the degree of difficulty, right? This idea that, this path that I'm on, it's rough, right? It's, it's a burden, but I'm gonna power through it no matter what, because this is my dream, right? Um, it kind of reiterates that point, that theme in this song here too, because near the end he's talking about, he's kind of confident that the path that he's on is the right one, right? He's willing to make the most out of it until it's his time to go, right? So yeah, overall this was a really like thoughtful and contemplative way to kick the record off, right? But for me, it's just the complexity of what he's talking about, especially in the lyrics, that really makes the song stand out, right? I really dig the beat, though. I really love how dark and ominous it is, though. But like I should say the lyric aspect of the song is what really makes it work, because of just what he's talking about and how deep he went into it as well, right? So I don't know if you have any thoughts on building and the video, if you want to talk about the video quickly.
Yeah, video real hard, song real hard. Lyrically it stick with you. This one is real hard. I get it. This is like probably my second favorite track on the album.
Okay. Well, it's, his second favorite. All right, interesting, right?
Uh-huh.
And also, fun fact: I didn't expect that this was going to be a single, by the way. But when he was teasing the release of this record, he did put out a bit of the song to us. So I was like, all right. Okay, no problem, right? Anyway, up next we have Two Roads, right? And this beat, like in comparison to what we got before, is much more comfortable to the ears, compared to Building. Like Building is very, dark and ominous. This one is lighter, more laid back. You kind of relax it, right? The beat is smoother. The drums will get your head nodding, and I like the female vocal chops in the background, right? And for me, like lyrically, this is where the main theme of this record is set up here, right? Because at least this is the theme I picked up from the whole record. It's basically the advantages and disadvantages of being an indie artist, right? It's, all right, I have the freedom to kind of make the music I want to make, collab with who I want to collab with. But at the same time, it's the dream of being signed to a label and, getting mainstream success. But you kind of feel at the same time, oh, well, what's that? What is that going to do to my art, right? It's like that. Like how much creative control will I have over my music? And will it still, reach the masses at the end of the day? I'm not too sure, right? But, it's the allure of success, that kind of lingers throughout this record here, right? I like that there's this vocal snippet at the beginning, and it says, once you sign a contract, it can make your art, right? But there's more pressure to make it appeal to the public, right? If your album flops, who's to stop the label from basically letting you go, right? But again, as an indie artist, you have a lot of control, but still, it's who's going to be listening to your work, right? So that's the conundrum,
In the current world, as they say, there's lose this. I don't know what to call it, but you lose this cycle of kind of controlling the conceits of what you have. So, like in the old, pre-internet days, you had a contract, you're locked into like about 7 or 8 albums or whatever it is, or whatever evil shit that Suge Knight or Puffy used to do to you, right? Speaking of Puffy, right? And now it's like, well, you're free, but now in some ways it's even worse, and it because hip hop went so mainstream, some of the more nastier tactics come about in the long run. Like, if Kesha, what happened to her now?
I'm familiar with what happened with her and this producer that she was working with who was really treated her like shit, like really bad.
That was some pretty nasty business now. So like how it is you could get it even worse in some ways, right? And it is the worst. I don't know, like how I look at a lot of the new era of taking into account money and wealth and all them things. Like it's so in today's world, you're not sure if the internet better or worse now, because the internet now, I find the age of the internet kind of terrible with respect to with controlling that kind of money now. Like it's much worse. It seems to be a lot worse in terms of the control now, because it give an illusion of freedom now. So I don't know. It's just me. But yeah, in the case of Mike, if he signed, it might be even worse for him. Again, we just dealing with Puffy, right? Puffy is a problem. That most of his nastiness was after, right? It was after the fact. Like somebody, the worst stuff is ignoring all the personal stuff, right? Just the reason why he was a big issue is because of that, right? He's just such a problematic producer now,
you're absolutely right, though. Just everybody in this roster could have blown up and could have done great things. So, like, I'll just throw one example and then I'll move on. Right, Craig Mack, though, like for me, though, he's the one who, like,
Rob.
Boy, and Black Rob as well too. Boy, they could have been so much bigger, right? But anyway, moving back now to outside interference, right? So, On the first verse, Mike is basically just expressing his frustrations over like just the tons of effort he's put into his music over the years, right? And the little respect and recognition that he gets, right? I love the bar, well, these following bars where he says, "It frustrates my soul seeing artists fight hard for a plate when that food done in the yard whole gone to waste," right? So it's a nice little bit of commentary on, yeah, just this music, well, this the artistry of music in this country, right? I love that, right? The hook is simple, you know what I mean, which is the whole, two roads, choose one, right? Now, for many people, they will think about the popular, 6 million ways to die, choose one, right? Which Cutty Ranks did off of the Wake Demand song, right? Classic song, love that song, right? But for me, every time I hear the hook on this, I'm always thinking about Swiss Beats' hook off of Jeezy's on to the next one, which is, "I got a million ways to get it, choose one." I love that. Like, it's just that, you have options, but in this case, of this song here, you had two, so which one you gonna go to, right? I love that, right? And speaking of dancehall, I fucks with that Lady Saw reference that he did in the second verse. I really dug that. On this verse though, he kind of ponders for a bit on how he'd act if he got signed, right? So he went down that one road, he got signed, but like, yeah, he just don't like how people move in, so he kind of acting up and whatnot, right? But then near the end now, he expresses that, he has no intentions of selling out. So he's kind of glad that, at this moment that he's still on the indie scene, right? I love the final bars for this, where he says, "This is a blessing, I'm happy. I don't keep sneaks around. This ain't Emperor Valley, but I stay safe and sound. With a clan full of lions like Blue Boy family. Never wrapped a lie, standing by my truth dog gladly." I love that. Great song with a great message, and I love the team as well too. Well, I should say I love the team and I love the hook as well too. So yeah, I kind of love Two Roads, man. I don't know if you do on that, you could tell me.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite song on the album, Pong for Pong. This is just as simple. Again, the introspective stuff is always the best stuff in his case. Again, it's either once you get jazzy or introspective, can't go wrong, right? With his material, I find.
Exactly. All right, so up next we have "Son of the Soil," right? And here Hard2See come through with a banger of a beat, right? Even though it's mid-tempo, but it still bangs, right? I love how he just kind of comes like Mike's hype man all of a sudden. So, he just sort of like yelling, this, kind of hyping up the crowd, like talking about how dread Micwise is and whatnot, right? I love, like, where before the second verse comes in, he yells, "If they don't king you, take the crown." Like, just the idea, just that whole aggressiveness that I love, right? And Mike sounds fired up and energized at this point, right? And he drops two fantastic verses with like a lot of quotables, a lot of rewind-worthy quotables, right? So I'll just reference one. "Plenty stars get away with mid-efforts. Evidently starved till this day. I've been fed up. And yes, I'm very scarred when you fakers big steppers. So I question every bar like that Jada Kiss record." And then you hear the ad-lib "why," right? And I'm like, yeah, that's it. Flames. I love that, right? But yeah, I mean, this whole track is Flames, from the production to Hard2See's aggressive hyping up, and just how passionate Micwise is on this track here. So yeah, easily one of the best tracks in this record, right? Let's drop a couple more, and then and then you could share your thoughts on the tree, right? Up next, we have "Hands of Midas." The hook alone is bound to get hip hop heads like smiling, right? Because it's basically him interpolating the hook off of Definition, that's from Black Star. That 1, 2, 3, most definitely quality. So he does his own version of it, right? But I like that he have this sort of like sardonic take on it. That's like, oh, you know what I mean? Like, we big on the scene, but I still don't want to rate we. That kind of vibe. That I love. That's how ironic it is, right? But it works. And yeah, in the sense here, it's not just about him that he's rapping. He's also talking about Hard2See. So basically, it's like, yeah, this tag team here, you're still sleeping on us. Like, what's going on, right? And I just love how, like, the beat compared to, like, what we heard before is mellower, but it's grimier, though, for some weird reason, right? And I love the guitars on this beat, by the way. Mike's extended verse on this, right? 'Cause it's just one verse that he gives, right? I'm not even gonna spoil it here, but it is amazing. It is so amazing that it needs its own lyric breakdown. Like, like somebody like who does those videos need to like do one for the verse on Hands of Midas, though. It is brilliant in my opinion, right? I love that, with the with the verse itself. Every line ends with a word that rhymes with Midas, right? So I love that there's a point where he says, make rappers J.K. Rowling with how I cancel writers, right? I mean, I love that. I love that, right? Yeah, so for me, this is a true album highlight, right? I love this, right?
Yeah.
And last track I'll talk about, and then you'll mention your thoughts on these three. The first single, which is Grave Mistake, that features Hard2See again and Mickey Fax, right? Now, saying Hard2See because, yeah, the man actually get to spit bars, right? And, yeah, but just have a tiny, tiny nitpick about this record, though. I felt we could have heard more of Hard2See behind the mic, though. Like, I felt like he could have spit a couple of verses and a couple of songs. I mean, is there just one and then he just hyping up Mike on another one? I felt we could have heard more of him on that record. So that's just my one gripe with this record, right? But I thought that his verse was solid too, right? And same thing for Mickey Fax. I know I've heard of this guy before, but yeah, I mean, I love how, yeah, just how grimy his verse was, right? And just to take a little break from the verses, right? The beat, though, I won't lie, was one that had to grow on me because, yeah, I mean, compared to the stuff that I, usually associate Mike with, the whole traditional boom bap stuff, this one is kind of different, right? What I like is that it's a little bit more colorful, right? That's the best way I could sum it up, right? Because, I mean, just off the title, and then, well, if you saw the lyric video with the whole cemetery team and all that kind of stuff, right? So It has this kind of pseudo horror kind of Halloween vibe to it, you know what I mean? It has a kind of spooky vibe thing going on, especially when you hear the vocals, the in the background, and the synths and whatnot. It's almost like this is like some track for Halloween that I'm listening to, right? But because of how creative it is, right? It just kind of gives these guys the opportunity to just go nuts though, and yeah, everybody just went off on this beat. You could tell that they were having a lot of fun with it, right? Because the beat is just so unconventional that they kind of had to make the most of it and have fun. And yeah, I could tell that everybody had fun with this, right? But back to Mike though. I mean, that's surprising. He stole the show. And I like that even though he's kind of having fun with this track here, right? He's still sticking with the theme of this whole idea of this part of the indie artist, right? The advantages and disadvantages, right? And yet he still managed to inject his verse with like a lot of braggadocio, and even drop a little bit of crass humor in it as well too, like that line where he talk about composer. Like I was like, that's actually quite hilarious, right? But it kind of comes out of the blue there, but he builds it. I won't like he builds it, right? But again, it's the idea that they're just having fun over this, like this is going wild now, basically, over this beat, right? And overall it's a fun track, but it's one that really did grow on me. Like just after like a few listens, like, okay, all right, I get the vibe of this though. It's fun, and yeah, I mean, nothing wrong with having a little fun, right? Even though the topic being addressed here is serious, right? But yeah, that's it. So Ricardo, your thoughts on Son of the Soil, Hands of Midas, and Grave Mistake?
Yeah, Son of the Soil is great. I mean, it's just, again, really, really like well thought out. Again, smart, self-aware, conscientious in its material. Hands of Midas is very clever in its conceit. Like, all right, that kind of catch me off guard in terms of like what they're trying to go for and where they're going with it. And then it's like, okay, I expect that from Mike in that sense. And then the last one is just, yeah, that is simple. Keep it in, it is simple conceit, and then you listen to it. And again, when I listen to it on my phone, I didn't listen to it and in much as much depth as you. I only run it through. I think I take a couple of walks with it. But it was just more like Javier just smirking. Like, okay, that's funny. That is like, okay, that's a good line.
Yeah, is that kind of song, right, where you hear the lines and you just kind of smile and laughing because it's funny. It's not goofy. It's just funny.
It's getting smoke out to you. It's just, it's like, all right, that's kind of cool. All right, well done.
Yeah.
You know what you do it.
Exactly. So now we are in the second half, right, of this album, and it starts with Rejoice, which features one half of the rap duo Soul Star, that will be Soul Child, right? And on a side note, Soul Child has been putting me on to like a number of tracks that he and his, rhyming partner in crime, Mark Soulman's been working on over the past few weeks, right? Yeah, and so let's get this out of the way, right? So, Soul Child, Soulman, we need an album, we need an EP, we need like these tracks that y'all are dropping are fire, like genuinely fire, right? But I don't know, like, are we gonna get the album? Are we gonna get an EP from you guys? Please, like, just put some note though. Like, there's so much great material that y'all dropping. Like, y'all have to put this together in a collection or something. Not just have them be singles, right? It's obvious that they have something in the works, right? But I just hope that we don't have to wait too long for it, right? But yeah, after the theatricality, that's the best way I could sum it up of Grieve Mistake. Hard2See kind of allows us to relax and chill for a bit over some smooth, soulful, piano-driven production, right? And yeah, I mean, not both surprising and not surprising. I mean, given what we heard from Mike with albums like Dirty Pages and Heat 68, right? Yeah, Mike gets political on this track though, but he does something very, very, very clever here, right? So, it's right. So the beauty of this track basically is twofold, right? So what he does, he just kind of talk about how citizens ultimately lose, right? Whenever election time rolls around, right? So, the idea is that, we're all gonna come out of this, happy and whatnot, but yeah, we all kind of lose in the end of the day, right? But what he does twofold here, right? So there is, the Trump v. Biden rematch going on, right? Which is so ironic that the outcome is going to be decided on November 5th of all these, right? So you could tell that he is referencing American and Trinidadian politics at the same time, right? And the second aspect of it, what I love about this track though, is that even though Mike is coming through with like this, even though with his wordplay, even though with his rap skills, right? And he kind of says this on the hook. His pleas for change will ultimately be ignored. You know what I mean? And again, going back to the theme of the album, because he's an indie artist, right? So just to reference Jadakiss again, it's not like he could do a song like Why and then have a video fit. If you remember for the video, we have that infamous shot with the guy with the placard with the sign Buckfush. You know what I mean? Like, he can't do something like that and get people like, oh wow, like wow, maybe it's really important that I do vote, or maybe I shouldn't vote. Wow, thanks, Jada. You know what I mean? Something like that, right? But a man like Jadakiss, with his credibility, do something like this now. And yeah, for the most part, it shook us. Like, it shook, it shook, I don't want to say it shook America, but it shook African Americans for, definitely, they did that, right?
Right.
But it's not like Mike could do that, right? So that's the kind of sad irony behind this whole song, right? And that's why, yeah, for me, like when Mike does his hook, right, which is delivered in this triplet flow, yeah, he sounds bitter though. He sounds real morose, like, like no matter what I say, like my words not really gonna like make a difference because nobody gonna listen, right? So it's just really sad though, but that's the point of it, right? Soul Child compliments Mike's verse with a truly heartfelt one about like he wants to bring about change in a positive way through his music, right? But he just feel the anger, about, which comes from failure, like his own failure, and just seeing like corrupt individuals, prosper, right? So it's like that. Like he wants to make change, but again, it's who's gonna listen, right? So overall, it's that dope track, but it's one that really stays with you because of the emotion attached to it, right? So yeah, really, really dope track, right? Up next, we have Toll, where, again, going back to themes that he's covered in the past. Yeah, he's talking about the negative effects of capitalism, right? It features this somber beat. It has like these 70s soul-like drums. It also kind of reminds me a bit like how Sing About Me, that's the first half of Kendrick Lamar's song Sing About Me, I'm Dying to Thirst. Yeah, probably one of the best songs this man ever made. That's off of Good Kid, Mad City. Like the beat, like the drums now have a similar kind of timbre to it, right? And it opens with this vocal snippet about this guy explaining how there's a few capitalists who run things and the people who working for them and under them are being exploited, right? It's the shortest track on this album, right? It barely hits the 2-minute mark, right? But lyrically, there's so much going on with it, right? I don't think I'll be able to cover all of it here. But like what he does, right? What Mike does, at least this is my assumption from giving this track a lot of listens, right? Is that he takes kind of like products and symbols of the American dream and use them to talk about his struggle as somebody who isn't who's not only isn't American, but he's not even able to attain the success that an American rapper is capable of, right? So the first 4 bars, he's talking about food. He's using like iconography associated with food, right? He's talking about like, like plates and forks and whatnot. He talks about a barbecue later on with a nice little verse there, well, like little bar there. Then he talks about the daily grind for money and how it relates to the drug and the gun trades, right? And how banks are designed to take your money, right? Especially under the guise of, living a better life, right? And in the end, he kind of expresses how he hopes again, he hopes that people will hear, his pleas, right? In this case, is anti-capitalism, right? So, he's hoping that people will hear the song and, better themselves now, and really break out of that system. But, it's just that final line, which I'm not going to spoil here, right? Again, but the irony behind that line, though, in particular, though, it kind of leaves me speechless, though, because it is how blunt it is, right? It's just that mic drop, boom, and that's it, right? But it's short, very well executed, though. And this one is also deserving of a lyric breakdown, right? Because, or I should say, an annotation, right? If it, like I'm not expecting this to be on Genius anytime soon. I mean, I would love if it was on Genius, right? But yeah, if somebody was like kind of willing to like kind of break down and analyze what the lines themselves mean, that would be great, right? But yeah, a lot of depth though in this song though. Just a lot of it's just amazing to me how much depth is packed into this one song here, right? So yeah. So yeah, Ricardo, your thoughts on Rejoice and Tool?
Yeah, these tracks, again, I have, I listened to this album a while, but yeah, still stick with me pretty good. The one thing about this one is that, yeah, all of this, the political stuff, and again, I find some of his best stuff is also political stuff as well, is how, again, surprisingly self-aware this stuff is. It keeps very concurrent. It just, as I say, is one of those, the things stay the same, but they also, things change a lot. Like he'll always balance it reasonably well and have ultimately, solid, but not too cynical of a message or not too defeatist. That's how I think about it. Kind of attitude towards this kind of stuff. But yeah, really, really good tracks overall.
Right. So up next we have The Surface, right? So the heat is raised up now by a couple notches thanks to Hard2See's anthemic horn and guitar assisted production, right? Like the previous track and Hands on Midas, Mike comes through with this fiery, passionate extended verse, right? And here's the thing, like it going real good in the first minute, right? And then like as he about to cross the second minute, he started dropping these references to bugs, right? Or insects, as we call them in Trinidad, right? So he starts off with fleas and then he talk about dragonflies, crickets and ants, right? And then even better, he builds off of those references with the line, can't let it get under my skin, won't make a rash decision. And then he just goes on with it and just punchline after punchline after punchline, right? None of which I'll spoil here, right? But it's so superb, right? Like this delivery and execution, so superb, right? Even Hard2See had to emphasize how hard those bars are by just dropping like a DJ sound effect. Like they say that we like hit at the end, like right at the tail end of Mike's final line. Jed. I love that, right? I should mention too, like on a few tracks on this album, you hear some little DJ sound effects as well too, right? So I mean, great song, great bars, great beat. I love this, right? And then up next now, well, this is the penultimate track now, Breakfast Club, right? So we get this punchy drum and piano combo beat. And I will like, though, like, if you are a boom bap lover, you will be loving this, right? And yeah, basically this is like another anthem, right? It's about Mike rapping about his determination in being one of rap's greatest, right? And by the way, points for that Rich Pryor bar in the first verse. I like that. Rich Pryor, Richard Pryor. Haha, I see what you did there, right? That was really clever. And in case you're wondering if the title is a reference to, the movie, The Breakfast Club, it is not. It is a reference to the other Breakfast Club, the
right,
show.
It's both. Well, it's a kind of mix of both. We can pick up some John Hughes,
Okay.
I think I'll pick up,
All right. Well, I'll re-listen to that because I'll more pick up on the Breakfast Club show stuff, not the John Hughes stuff. I'll
yeah, me too. Well, it's more Charlamagne the God stuff. But I pick up a couple of little things here or there. This one is another track that had the smirking. Like
I know, boy. But speaking of smirking, right, is the final line he drops before we get this beat change us. Which references the Breakfast Club, right? I'm not gonna say what it is, boy, but when it happened, I was like, God damn! Yeah. No wonder the beat had to switch though. Like, what?
Yeah. The Breakfast Club is one of these, like, because politically they shift for a lot of people, and the problem is the money and what you had to do to go quote unquote mainstream. I mean, recently they did something that was like, you're really putting this person on your platform, but that is, you gotta make your money, I suppose. That bullshit, right? It's stuff like that. But it's a perfect, like, they had to get dragged. Let me just put it like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, go ahead.
yeah. But yeah, I mean, well, just to get to the second beat now, it's moodier, it's more, it's menacing actually compared to the last one. And I love how you get these Jamaican DJ vocals, right? It reminds me of how Autonomy, which is the final track, offered the degree of difficulty started off, right? With these ghostly vocals or whatnot, right? I also love the dramatic strings that pop up throughout this instrumental. It gives the song this sort of dramatic feel to things, right? Even Mike comes off very dramatic here, right? So he's talking about how his thoughtful, sort of insightful approach to his bars makes him and other rappers like him threats to labels who just, it's just all about trendy shit. It's all about, like flavor of the month kind of stuff, right? I love how he references M and Jeezy's classic collab, Renegade, right? Like how he just kind of sees Renegade, M and G, right? Just together, right? Yeah, technically he is, like, Mike kind of sees himself as a renegade, right, in this whole rap game. And he is a student of both G and M, right? But yeah, I mean, as far as an album wind down, though, absolutely love this, right? And last but not least, we have Sydney, right? So Hard2See close this album off with probably the most disenchanted beat that he has in his collection, right? Even the lounge-like pianos on this beat sound moody as all hell, right? And hip-hop heads, like die-hard hip-hop heads, would appreciate the use of, to do some Googling for this, Jeffrey Sumner's train sequence narration. So that's This Is a Journey into Sound, right? Which you remember off of Eric B. and Rakim's Paid in Full remix, classic remix, love that song. Yeah. And funny thing is, I never heard the whole recording, so I was stoked to hear like another part of that section, because he plays the parts that you hear in the Eric B. and Rakim song. But there's another part that comes afterwards, like, I didn't know that exists. Okay, what? You know what I mean? So thank you, Hard2See, for reminding me that there is more to that recording than what we heard in that song, right?
Usually that sample, that's the thing with that sample, because it's only, the only person who just take these kind of little, there's no the mainstream sample, and then you see the little side samples, and it's the side samples catch you off guard with production. Yeah, the only producers who catch you off guard with these kind of samples, at least for me, I know big super, aficionado, but both Kanye West and Metro Boomin does this well. They'll take samples in a weird way that you don't expect, like that kind of stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. All right, so basically, Mike uses his beat to express his utter frustration at certain irate rappers. I love how you say irate rappers and you repeat it, on the verse, who aren't willing to work as hard as he does on his craft. And a lot of rap heads, especially from here, who continue to sleep on Mike, right? I love how direct he is in expressing his frustration. You could feel the resentment in each bar that this man dropped, right? And there's a truly memorable moment where he talk about, where whether he kind of ponders on whether his legacy will be remembered when he's sick and dying, right? And instantly that reminded me of, certain rappers who passed away. Case in point, Black Rob, right? And it's like, well, wow, like, you're telling me, like, over the years, all the fame and acclaim and money they make and they all for the catalog, and they bedridden like this, like, and they're doing like GoFundMe, stuff like that, to raise funds to get treatment. Like, what going on here? You know what I mean? But yeah, just the idea of, this is what your legacy come to. You know what I mean? So I love how he addressed that there, right? And yet, at the end of the day, he holds on to that determination, right? He's still determined to be one of the greatest, right? But again, with that determination, I mean, it comes with its own burdens, right? And the irony now, at the end of the day, with all this that we talk about here, is that even if he does get signed, it's not like those burdens are gonna go away. That's the thing. They might actually be worse. They might be amplified though if he were to be signed. So imagine, so that's the real irony about this whole record. And I'll stop here.
Yeah, no, yeah. Again, this is a really good track. Again, very introspective. It's one of those things that, even as I say, sometimes life might be worse if you succeed. Is the problem is that you want to have success in your own merit, but today's world really don't really cater to you in that way. in that meaningful sense. And he understands that, that's the problem with signing and the modern state of hip hop. Because, people is getting into this debate about whether or not hip hop in decline or not right now. And what I argue is that it's not that it's in decline, is that its mainstreamness is a problem, right? It is, it's past its point of if you want to do your stuff independently, you could. It's just where the money is now. Like this is something that we'll have to talk about. I'll more likely talk about it at the end of the year. But basically, it's the problem of white commentary. I'm just going to straight up say it. Like, just that aspect of it is kind of poisoning the discourse in terms of who you're listening to and why when it comes to hip hop and who gets to talk about hip hop. And all of a sudden somebody make a real funny joke about these people interpreting bars better than the rappers themselves, that kind of stuff. Now the joke is there's a pace of commentary that undermining hip hop because how mainstream it is. Recent because of Kendrick's verse against Drake and J Cole, but people in the commentary about it more different than what they say it is, so it kind of poisoning you well about the art form in itself. I'm not explaining this particularly well. I don't think I explained this particularly well, but basically the idea, I think it's just the problem of what I call white commentary. It's that set. Right? It's not necessarily a race thing, but it's more the mainstreamification problem.
Yeah, I think ultimately it's just how we should think about it. Like, for us rap heads, it's like, ooh, rap beef, but to them
right.
It's like, oh, it's about capitalism and what those guys spoke about in their raps compared to Kendrick and blah, blah, blah.
There's a strange dimension of it, and you only see it with hip hop all of a sudden because hip hop making money and so on and so forth. And we can get into that debate of who making money and why and which mainstream person and blah, 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 blah. It's weird. It's strange. There's something about it that I find incredibly unusual with respect to that. And yeah, I know you like him, your boy, but he kind of part of the problem, Anthony Fantano, right?
I know. I know.
Yeah, he kind of part of the problem in that sense. In terms of like, you need to. This is my interpretation and so on. So
and video, like debates about it too and all kinds of stuff.
There's a video. There's a video right now that's out that I haven't finished yet. Probably gonna make but so far I've been loving it. And it's probably going to make my best of the year in terms of video internet video essays stuff. A video called The Commentary Crisis. I recommend this video. That's what I'm talking about.
Thank you.
It's that kind of stuff, right? I recommend it. Called The Commentary Crisis. Is by that guy is a fellow from Bahamas. I forget his name. Foreign man in a foreign land. That dude.
Okay.
Right. I recommend this video right now because it's like okay, this guy, hitting the nail on the head about what going on and in terms of like the strange, how money does play out and these kind of unusual conceits of the engagement of art form. And yeah, it's pretty insidious stuff because to me, this is at the heart of the problem because the people who perpetrate it, not necessarily insidious, but they end up causing the problem in a sense now. But yeah, that's how I kind of feel about this in terms of Micwise, him coming from Trinidad, him being a younger rapper, and to be fair, Micwise himself, even though he's I make the joke, Paul Wall looking right, himself also, he understands his state and his place in the art form, and so on and so forth, right? That's how I kind of see how that last song really does a good job of highlighting that issue. And yeah, I'm really glad to talk about it again. It also like, hey, this is really surprising you're talking about this. This is actually surprising. Yes. This was as much of a surprise as when he did Tropical Depression. And
right. Fantastic closer to
that just kind of shocked me. Yeah, that just shocked me as, you actually went there with this material, but all right, well, word, you're on that level, bro. Like, it's that. Yeah, so it's that.
Yeah. Well. I mean, you mentioned Breakfast Club, you mentioned Sydney, but what about the Surface? Any thoughts on the Surface?
Yeah, this one didn't stick with me. Again, I didn't cycle through this album as much as I could have. I only did one walk, and I can't remember. And I did it like last week because again I was busy with some shit, and it was my birthday. It was a double shit.
Yeah, it's okay. It was your birthday. Sorry about that. It was your birthday.
No, sorry about that. I didn't listen to it.
It's all right. I mean,
it's out before we start the thing. I just trying to remember of a week ago. So
well, no. I mean, like for this review, I really had to dig in and listen to it carefully, right? I should mention too. Just to wrap things up, right? It's a really short album though, but it's solid though, and just to get the great out the way, this is just yet another great collab between Mike and a little known artist, right? So in this case, it's Hard2See. So yeah, this album literally put me onto this guy, and I'll be looking out for his music in the near future or collabs in the near future, because yeah, I thought that he brought like just a really impressive selection of beats here, right? No surprise, Mike kills it on this record, though, especially the introspection here, right? It again, it feels like a spiritual successor to The Degree of Difficulty, where, he kind of talks on similar themes, right? And, I could sense that there may be some people or some listeners who might get tired of the whole, okay, so you have to talk about how bad it is to be an indie artist and how bad it is to be a rapper in Trinidad. Oh gosh, blah, 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 we get, right? But no, it's like something serious that needs to be addressed, right? Period, right? It doesn't just apply to rap, it just applies to just art in general. I mean, we both have a film background, right? And here we are talking about stuff like this on a podcast, right? But I'll leave it at that. I don't want to make a rant about that, right? But you could tell that this is something that is deep to him. Like you could tell this is something that fuels him, right? It's just that fire that fuels him to keep pushing, to keep going hard, right? And it could have simply been, just him trying to outdo his last record. Just kind of spit the best bars and be, it is by top me, just to quote Kendrick, right? But
right.
I love that he kind of always brings himself down to earth. It's like, you know what? I'm not the only one who goes through this. There's other people who I know that feels that same way. Not just in Trinidad, but in the country, where you look at and you always assume, oh, yeah, rappers and producers should make it big because it's America, right? Then you realize, oh no, there's indie producers there that still looking for that big break, or selling beats online or putting out beat tapes on Bandcamp, hoping that other rappers could discover their work. You know what I mean? So it's like that,
Yeah, as I say, with Puffy having an implosion, right? You really get to know the history of all the bad behavior on the producer end of things, right? In terms of who controlling what and why, and sorry to say, the nature of hip hop. Look, all music like this, but with hip hop and especially our modern, I don't know what to call it, gig economy, effectively, that it particularly acute, I think, within hip hop, and that part again. The commentary carries this problem, right? It's who talking about what and who get to be part of the discourse in that sense, and looking for underground rappers, it next to impossible to break through. And look, even my boy, Jay-Z make that point, right? He was talking about the nature of the Grammys, and like, yeah, what is going on with respect to the Grammys, right? Like, people who definitely don't need to be here now. And but because of the nature of social media, it becoming more obvious and blatant now. In terms of the who get into what, make what decisions, and where the money flowing in terms of the control now. And I think the internet becoming more and more insidious in that sense now. Much more insidious than it was before. I mean, ironically, right, out of all things, right? But yeah, that's the last point.
Yeah, exactly. And this one point I always want to mention too, right? Look, even my Fiverr gig, right, where I just review music and music releases, music videos or whatever, right? Yeah, I mean, there's like tons of indie artists, right? A majority of which come from the States, right? And like they're little known as well, right? And they just have so much talent, right? And I'm just like, wow,
yeah,
again,
that's what kind of interesting, because like
crazy,
you have so many foreign artists actually asking you to do stuff, which is so weird now. Like, wait, what going on in the States in terms of money and that kind of stuff? Like, why are they asking you now? Like that, I ain't putting you down, but you get my point,
no. But I feel it's just the idea, like they know that they have great music under their belt, and just want someone to listen. That's it. That's
exactly. Congrats, and you put yourself out there with these kind of people. You put yourself out there. Respect to that. I ain't saying no, but it's weird, right? It's kind of weird that somebody in the United States can't, make that aspect of it.
Yeah, it's well. I mean, right. to be fair, it's not like they do reach out to other people and to other bloggers or whatnot, right? It's not just me, but yeah, just like me though, like seeing, because I make it clear right out the gate, I'm from Trinidad, right? But they're like, yeah, a bastard way to listen to my work, right? That just blows my mind, right? So I think at the end of the day, that's why with this particular album, that's why there are only American collabs, right? Only American rappers involved with this, and not Trini rappers like what we got with his last two records from last year, right? So I feel that was purposeful, like just to touch on that point, right? But yeah, I enjoyed this, right? Not as much as The Degree of Difficulty though, but that's not a bad thing. But it's a great
it's more like a small, Yeah, it's more a small follow-up, and it works.
Yeah.
It's solid stuff, solid material. You get it out there, you can tell. I mean, as I say, tomorrow, I forget which song it was, but he could take 3 years off. That's how big is the folder, right? He have a lot of material, and I'm glad he really like getting it out and belting it out there. So yes, that.
Yeah, agreed.
And
So
he have been smirking.
yes, yes, he have you
When
of
I-
all people,
when I-
you of all
You know,
people smoking.
when I wait to the bank, and it's like, like, that's funny.
Right, like you're reminded of a line, like, oh, right, okay, right.
I'll just be that taxi or something like that. I'll be like, all right, that not bad. All right,
Yeah.
that clever.
Exactly. Yeah, so for me, decent to stroke 4 out of 5, man. Definitely check it out. Again, it is on Bandcamp. And I just let you all know, like for you serious hip hop heads out there, don't just like listen to it off of Bandcamp and be like, all right, yeah, I'll listen to it. All right, cool. But show support. You know what I mean? Buy the record as well too. Again, I wish I knew how Bandcamp physical seals work. It says like I do. Like I'm just sort of wondering. If people do buy from Bandcamp or not, right? But again, it's a Bandcamp exclusive. At the time of me talking about this here, I am not sure if it will be on Spotify in the near future. Maybe it will. I don't know. But I think that, Bandcamp is a good start just to see if people do respond to it. And I hope that they do, right? Because, yeah, again, just top quality, man. So, yeah, show some support here, man. So final thoughts rated for you.
Yeah, again, solid, 8 out of 10. I mean, it's just really, really solid lyrics, funny stuff, great lines, good, topicality. Yeah, he on point as usual. I can't be mad at any of this. And it again, after I apologize for not giving it a full proper listen, but yeah, it was up there. I just remember, oh right, this is a really solid outing as album, and it's solid stuff. Yeah.
Right.